yeah, man. All out of options, nothing to choose. I'm pissed out on Netflix, I'm sick of the news. I'd sign up to Sky, but I don't wanna pay. I've been on furlough since May. Never go and listen to a Cockney attitude. Ooh, breaking away. Got to find a better way. I'd rather watch Auf Wiedersehen again and listen to what these old men have to say.
Hello, and guten Tag, and welcome to Auf Wiedersehen Again. This is episode 3, and today we are covering series 1, episode 3, The Girls They Left Behind. And It is me, your host, Mr. Andy Sledge, and my partner in crime and co-host, Mr. George Bradley. George, how the devil are you today?
Yeah, guten Tag. My sink in my kitchen started leaking, so that was a mild bit of excitement and panic at the same time, but it kind of broke up the lockdown boredom.
Sounds like you could do with, say, a group of builders to come around your house and fix it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's currently leaking at the moment.
Sounds like you could do with a plumber with maybe a penchant for country and western music.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah,
we'll see what happens. But yeah, so there appears to be less light streaming through your window this week than there was last week. The weather is a little bit shittier this week.
Yeah, I was up at 6 a.m. and it was. It gets daylight now, but
yeah, it is.
The mist was. Was that something out of American Werewolf in London? Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm a bit of an early riser myself. So yeah, I'm normally up at like sort of 6, half 6.
Yeah.
It's like I say, I'm normally leaving the house at about 7 to go to work.
Oh, I remember those days of work. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now, you're leaving the house and there's actually a bit of sunlight coming through the sky.
Yeah, it's nice.
Being the drudgery of the darkness. I hate it. So yes, there's not only light in the sky, but there's light at the end of the tunnel.
That's it. Yeah.
Hopefully, things are going to be getting a little bit better, not only weather-wise and light-wise, but also socially as well.
Yeah, pub and restaurant-wise. Yeah.
Exactly. We are still in the midst of the lockdown, which is pretty shit. So we are hoping that within a few weeks from now, I think it's about 6 weeks from now, we've got another 6 weeks of the lockdown. And then things are going to start reopening. Kids,
a bit of sunshine and should be good.
Yes, and then I'm hoping that we can potentially go on holiday. I've got tickets booked for Italy in June, but whether that comes through or not is totally different. So anyway, like I say, episode 3 of Auf Wiedersehen Again. This is the third week that we've done this, George. This is this is better than a lot of relationships with women.
Definitely.
It's lasted longer than a lot of relationships I've had with women. As always, if you have any constructive criticism, feedback, praise or abuse, please feel free to contact either me or George on our email, which is aufwiedersehenagain@gmail.com. And as always, with technological abilities, I will be posting the information along the bottom of the screen. Please follow us on social media. Instagram, Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. That's Instagram @Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. Please follow us on Twitter @Auf Again. Please like and share the Facebook page, Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel and press the little bell, and that will give you an alert every time a new episode is released. And new episodes are going to be released every Friday at 10 a.m. And we're also available on audio podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, Google, Breaker, Soundcloud, and many more. And our theme music is recorded and sung by the guitar man himself, Mr. Lee Dusky. And so please do go on to whichever platform, wherever you get your podcasts, and please either like or subscribe to our podcast channel. And our podcast, Auf Wiedersehen Again, is sponsored by Top Gun Tattooing, which is number 12, the Harris Arcade in Reading. Their website is www.topguntattoo.co.uk. Their phone number is 01189 968 667. And all of the listeners of Auf Wiedersehen Again podcast are entitled to a 20% discount from the cost of their tattoo. And all they have to do is contact Zach from Top Gun Tattooing. And when you get through to Zach, you got to say the code. The code is Hadaway and Shiteman. So if you say to Zach, all right, Zach, Hadaway and Shiteman, you will get a 20% discount off the cost of your tattoo. And don't forget, what are we also doing tattoo-wise, George?
Yeah, a free tattoo of Lottie.
That's it. So we at Auf Wiedersehen Again are also giving.
Has anyone taken it up yet?
Well, we haven't actually, but the thing, not as yet. However, we are as we're recording this, we do record a little bit ahead just to make sure we've got a couple in the bag. So the last episode, when we actually announced our tattoo offer, goes live in a couple of days.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I will let you know. I mean, I'm assuming that out of the millions and billions of downloads that we had, there's going to be at least half a dozen people.
They'll be queuing around the corner, I would think.
Absolutely. I mean,
socially distanced.
I don't know how Top Gun Tattooing are going to cope with the increased demand for Neville and Lottie tattoos.
Yeah.
But we shall see. So, like I said, if you want a free tattoo, there are some terms and conditions. All you've got to do is get a Neville and Lottie tattoo on your arm, the same as Neville, and we here at Auf Wiedersehen Again podcast will pay for your Neville and
share the picture.
And absolutely, we will share that picture amongst all. I mean, I'll be there. If someone goes down to get a Neville and Lottie tattoo, I will be there and I will be filming that. And that will be going live on all of our social media channels. Like I say, if you want a 20% discount, speak to Zach and say Hadaway and Shiteman. And if you want a free tattoo, you get yourself a Neville and Lottie tattoo. So that is all of the boring stuff out of the way. So hopefully, our viewers on YouTube will have noticed the picture quality and hopefully the sound quality will also be a little bit better, because what we've done here at Auf Wiedersehen Again podcast, we have upgraded from Skype to Zoom.
So we're striving to improve.
Exactly. We're all, and look at this. So, I mean, hopefully it won't be too long till we can actually do this in real life and we can meet up somewhere in a podcast studio and we can actually record it. But, let's not get too hasty.
Yeah.
So, like I say, this is the third episode of Auf Wiedersehen Again, and we are today focusing on Series 1, Episode 3, The Girls They Left Behind. And this episode was first aired on the 25th of November, 1983. Oh, yeah. So,
like 2 years' time, it'll be 40 years since that...
That's it, yeah. It makes you feel old, doesn't it?
40 years. I mean, God.
Yeah, I mean that definitely makes me feel a little bit old there, mate. So but as we've discussed, the quality definitely holds up over the time.
Yeah.
So we get introduced to a few characters during this one. Oh. And that's it. I tell you what, there was one other thing I forgot to do that I told you before. We have a shout out. We've got our first shout out to our first listener. So we need to do a big shout out to Dougie Brown. Now, Dougie Brown was supporting the podcast on Facebook. So Dougie Brown posted up a post in one of the Facebook groups. I think it was our Wiedersehen Pet Appreciation group.
Is he a man who wants a tattoo?
Not sure. I'm not sure. He didn't mention the tattoo. But what he did say is he did post up and say, anybody listening to the podcast, he says, I think it's quite funny when the bloke swears. So I think he's talking about me there. I think he's talking about me. I wasn't sure if he was being facetious or whether he was being serious, but I'm going to take that as a serious compliment. Thank you very much, Dougie Brown. Big shout out to you. Keep listening to the podcast.
Bollocks.
Keep spreading the word. So, so this episode, we meet a couple of people. There's a couple of sort of, what you would consider to be famous Geordie actors doing sort of, walk-on-y bit parts. But we also meet Marjorie.
Oh, yes.
Oz's dreaded wife of Oz.
Miss Leopardskin herself.
Exactly. So interesting fact. Another shout out to another listener. This one isn't as, we didn't generate this listener organically like we did with Dougie. However, my mother is a keen listener, so big shout out to me mother and my stepdad Alistair. But my mother pointed something out, and a little bit of a fact for you, a little bit of information is on the credits when they go across the map and they stop at Dusseldorf and they do the ring around Dusseldorf. Just north of Dusseldorf, there is a town called Wuppertal. And Wuppertal is twinned with South Shields. It actually says South Tyneside, but yeah, South Shields, South Tyneside.
I thought you were going to say it was Dutch for Marjorie, but okay.
Who knows? But it's in Germany, so I doubt it. But yes, so the town just north of Dusseldorf called the Wuppertal is twinned with South Tyneside, South Shields, and that was an interesting fact provided by my mum. Thank you, mum. So, obviously the credits go in, and we are about to meet one of the very interesting characters who ends up in the hut. So we see the Bico sign, and the lads are lurking around the hut. Obviously, we discover quite quickly that they're waiting for the wages. Oz reads Barry's watch, and Oz states the bleeding obvious. He's like, it's 10 to 6, He goes, you should have been here at 2 o'clock, like as if Barry didn't know. They're all there for the same reason. Barry's like, his car could have broken down, or, like what any sort of kind of normal person. When you're waiting on money, it can be.
Well, they're all waiting to get on the piss. Well,
exactly. They're waiting for money. They want to get out on the piss at 6 o'clock. Normally, they'd probably be, 10 pints deep by now.
Yeah.
So Barry's, being the peacemaker, he's like, maybe the car's broken down. Anyway, all of a sudden, we see McGowan.
My favourite character.
Exactly. So McGowan is a rough old Irish builder who is played by Michael Elphick. Now, some of it, I'm sure you may know. So Michael Elphick, like back in the 80s and maybe 90s, Michael Elphick was like one of the most famous people on TV.
Yeah, he was in The Elephant Man.
Yeah, he was in The Elephant Man. There was a thing on one of the Facebook pages about that this week. Someone said McGowan's helping out The Elephant Man. And then, but do you remember the two things that he was in that I used to watch? Number one, probably the most famous thing on TV. Boone was brilliant. Ha-ho, Silver.
Yeah. Jim Diamond, yeah.
I used to love a bit of Boone. And do you remember he was also in this comedy? Was it called 2 Up, 2 Down? Where he was living.
But even earlier than that, he was in a show called. He was in a Private Schultz. Do you remember that? He was a German soldier.
Oh, really?
Comedy. Yeah, that was probably, I'd say late 70s, probably about 79. Yeah, Private Schultz. Yeah.
I was about 3. I would have been 2 or 3 then, mate. Yeah. So. Well, look, so they introduced McGowan, like I say, Michael Elphick, very, very famous. And, Dagmar and Herr Ulrich leave the hut, 6 o'clock. They're knocking off for the weekend. And as Dagmar walks out the hut, you hear the wolf whistles and the Like, it's like, woo, all the lads start lusting after Dagmar. And Herr Ulrich is like, what are you doing? Are you having a protest? And and Oz shouts at the top of his voice, we want more wages, man. Obviously, Ulrich's like, it's not my
This is not my problem.
Basically, it's not my problem, which is fair enough. He pays Herr Pfister to sort that out. And Ulrich's like, this is your business. And Oz is like, well, if we don't get paid, we're not going to come to work. And Ulrich is like, well, I will go and get more Englanders. That's what he calls them, the Englanders. I will get more Englanders. And then as he drives off, McGowan...
He whacks the roof, doesn't he?
Yeah, bashes the top of his car.
I have a McGowan story, if I can share it.
Continue, George.
Yeah, you probably know when I worked in a pub in Mayfair about 25 years ago, for a month, Elphick was my best customer.
Oh, really?
He'd come in at 11 o'clock. As soon as I opened the door, double gin and tonic, which wouldn't even hit the sides.
Oh, really?
By the time he gave me the money and I give him the change, he drunk the drink, and I had to pour him another one. So for about a month, because I think he was doing some sort of film in there, and they put him up in the Hilton round the corner. Yeah. So he was in there. So I had some good chats with him about different things. You know, he's an interesting guy.
About Boone.
Yeah, but at the end of the month, my owner of the pub came down to have a chat to me, as she would, about sales and that. And she said, how come the gin sales were so good, and then they're flatlined?
You were like, McGowan.
Yeah, I said to her, she's a very posh lady, she's teetotal. I said, well, McGowan doesn't come in here anymore. And she's like, well, who the hell is McGowan? I had to explain to her.
Well, there you go.
That was that.
Fraternising with the rich and famous, you, George.
Yeah.
So McGowan bashes the top of Herr Ulrich's car, which is, to be honest, it's a bit, I know McGowan doesn't really give a shit, but it's, it's a bit, he's pushing his luck a bit there. Herr Ulrich is the kind of bloke that would probably sack him for that. Anyway, so then Dennis is walking through the site. He goes in the hut. Moxie's getting a bowl of water with a towel.
That's it. He's got a cold again.
And Dennis is like, look at them lunatics. Obviously, it's not going to make them come any faster. Neville, straight away, doesn't change the record. I want to send me money back to Brenda. I need to send.
She expects her money on Monday.
Yeah. So anyway, Dennis is being all sensible. He's like, he could have had a puncture, etc. And then Moxie, sort of puts the fear of God basically into Neville, and obviously doesn't help matters by telling a story that Bomber told them about when the agent robbed their wages.
Yeah, he done a runner.
And so Moxie goes down and he's inhaling from the bowl. He's obviously got Vicks in the hot water, and he's questioned about it. And he says, yeah, that their agent legged it to Hamburg.
Some Fraulein, I think.
That's it. Some young Fraulein from the architect's office. And
you've got his voice off brilliantly, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And anyway, so you can see the lads throwing the towel while they're waiting for Herr Pfister. Wayne mentions he's got a date, and McGowan's like, no, I'm waiting. He's like,
oh, he's still there. Yeah.
And McGowan threatens to stick a hose up his arse and blow gravel up his jacksie. And then Barry, which I've got to admit, Barry, quite out of character, takes the piss out of McGowan.
Yeah.
Quite brave of Barry.
He does back off a little bit, though.
Oh, yeah. What he does, I think he forgets who he's talking to for a second. Because he says, oh, yeah, he says, you could take a hard line, though. Like, take the piss. And then McGowan sort of looks at Barry, and Barry realises what he's done and then runs off. So it cuts back to the hut. Neville is writing a postcard to Brenda, as usual.
Yeah.
And Bomber, talks about McGowan as being a hard case. And Wayne questions Bomber about the missing money. What did you do? And Bomber just says, we went short. He says, we could have chased them, but it would have cost them more to go and find them than it would.
I was always wondering, who do you think would win a fight between Bomber and McGowan?
Well, later on, we're going to talk about this. Later on, when McGowan gets fucking mouthy, you'll know there's an episode later on when McGowan hits Neville.
Yeah.
you'll notice that Bomber isn't there.
Yeah.
Bomber's conveniently back in England for that episode, because obviously, I reckon Bomber would strike McGowan right up. So Wayne questions Bomber. Bomber says, look, we just went short. Said we could have tracked them down, but it would have been too much. And then naively or stupidly, Nev just goes, well, do we not have any kind of protection? And Dennis is like, of course not.
That'd be daft.
And then he says, well, what am I supposed to tell Brenda? Again, Neville asking Dennis advice on something that's just got nothing to do with him. What am I going to tell Brenda? Dennis, like, what the fuck's that got to do with me, basically? And Bomber says, well, I suggest you do what I did and tell her the truth. He goes, I told her the truth, but she didn't believe me. And he goes, Brenda counts on her money every Monday.
That's it.
And Oz, in typical fashion, Oz is like, well, I count on mine every Friday night. And And, Dennis is like, if you stay in, you're going to save a bit of money. And, Barry's like, that's why we're all here. And Oz is like, not me. No, again, this is highlights the difference between Oz and the rest of the lads.
Yeah.
And Neville hammers the point home again that he doesn't want to be in Germany. He's only here for the money, And it's like, come on, Neville, change the record. And then Oz is like, well, why does Barry save money? He hasn't got a wife. Like, as if having a wife is the only reason you would possibly want to save any of your money. You know what I mean? And Barry outlines that he's the sole source of income for his family, and he sends money back to his dear old mum. And then where does the rest of the money go, George?
To the building society, I think.
Yeah, which particular building society, though?
Oh, the West Bromwich.
The West Bromwich District.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So Barry once again tells everyone that his money.
He's the only source of income, isn't he?
Yeah, but he not satisfied with just going, I put my money in the bank or I put my money in the building society. He's like, I have an account at the West Bromwich District. For some reason, he seems to think that having an account at the West Bromwich District puts him a cut above the rest, which is a bit strange. And he says, I'm saving for my future. And for some reason, I don't know, Bomber says the way you drive your motorbike, you
haven't got much future.
Now, I mean, not that we've seen any evidence of this, but yeah, Bomber seems to think that Barry's not a very good driver, or he drives too fast, or Oz is like, I'm not bothered about the future, I'm only bothered about Friday night, which is right now. And it's, everyone's stressing, Neville's stressing and Dennis is stressing about, actually doing something with the money, sending it, looking after the wife and the kids and whatever. And Oz is just worried about getting pissed,
And he's not sending money. He thinks it's going to jeopardize her benefits. So,
Yes, well, this is it. He, Dennis, Dennis assumes that Oz is sending money home. Because everybody is, everyone obviously everyone with a wife. So Dennis, Neville, Bomber, they're the three, and they're the three married guys. Barry's sending money back and he's not even married. Obviously, Moxie doesn't really talk about it. We know Wayne spends his on women there. And so obviously, because he's married, Dennis just assumes that Oz is sending money home. So he says, you're going to miss one Friday night's drinking, and that'll mean you can send a bit more home to the wife.
That's it,
And Oz is like, I don't send her anything anyway. and like Neville, this is like, Neville's in the same way that in the last episode, Oz was horrified that Neville had gone round Helmet's house. This episode, Neville can't believe, the very concept that Oz doesn't send any money home is alien. And as you've said there, George, Oz justifies his behaviour by saying that because the wife's on benefits, if he sends her any money,
it'll jeopardise it.
It'll jeopardise the benefits, so he sends her out. So he explains that he spends his money on a Friday and Saturday night. And then surprisingly, Wayne gives some valuable advice about cash flow.
That's it.
And he says you need a better fiscal strategy to make your money last. So
I think, doesn't Barry say we could learn a lot from you, Wayne?
Well, that's it. We could learn a lot from you, Wayne. Wayne's off out. So Wayne has still got money left from the previous week. Whether it's and Dennis can't believe it. Dennis is like shocked that Wayne is going to be going out. And he says, I can't believe you've got any money left with all the women. And Wayne explains, he said, well, this one's got her own car, her own flat, she cooks food. He says, so the only thing I've got to stump up for is a bottle of wine. So so Wayne's going to go and get his leg over and have a nice meal cooked for him and he's going to be spending the evening in a nice apartment as opposed to the hut.
Yeah.
And then, Wayne just says to Dennis, you pick, if he turns up, you collect the money. And then he goes out and Bomber says, we're going to have a night in, home away from home. And then Oz has a bit of a pop at Moxie.
That's it.
He says,
asthmatic pit pony.
So he says, I don't know about home. It smelt more like a hospital since Moxie moved in. And he says, he talks about sleeping and he says, you sound like an asthmatic pit pony. And he says, Moxie's like, it's not funny if you've got inflamed bronchs. So Barry sticks up for Moxie, talks about he's brought the dartboard and asks if anyone wants a game of darts. Anyway, Herr Fister turns up at the hut.
Oh, yeah.
He's bleeding out his nose. And the lads are obviously, showing some genuine concern for Herr Fister. And he says there was problems on the Autobahn. And Dennis is like, what, did you have a crash? And he goes, no, it was your friend McGowan. Anyway, Oz laughs, which is a bit out of order. Once again, Herr Fister's, obviously McGowan's punched Herr Fister. And
he's another one, actually, that McGowan probably wouldn't confront.
Well, I think they're probably on a bit of a level.
Yeah.
Oz and McGowan. But again, we'll see. Because I can't remember specifically what happens later on. We'll have to wait until we get that episode later.
Yeah.
So anyway, they cut to the bar, and as always, our favourite band are playing in the bar.
Oh yes.
Expose. So Oz and Dennis and Barry and Bomber are in the bar. And Dennis questions Barry about why he's actually out. He says, "I thought you were, I thought you were saving money." And Barry justifies having a night out. He's like, we live in squalid conditions, so and he says, so every now and again you can let it all hang out.
You know the song that's playing as well?
I don't know.
Ultravox Vienna.
Oh yeah, Vienna.
Yeah. That's what they're playing. Yeah.
Is it? Are they singing it in English? Or
they're singing it. Yeah.
Is it in English though? Or are they singing in German?
Yeah, I think it is in English. Yeah.
So anyway, Dennis talks about how they got married too early. When he's talking about it. So Oz, Dennis, and Bomber are married. Barry isn't married, and he says about we got married too early, and Dennis says that he got married when he was 19 years old. And Oz, as always, subtle as a brick. He's like, your marriage is going down the pan. And Dennis is like, I beg your pardon. And Dennis has got the raging hump. Oz just completely...
Your marriage a mockery.
That's what he says. And he says, you shouldn't be getting on my back. Oz tries to say to him, stop getting on my back when your marriage is going down the piss pot. And Dennis is like, your marriage is a mockery. Oz is like, well, we're still together. And Dennis is like, Gateshead's most stable couple.
Yeah.
So anyway, they start arguing, and Bomber's the voice of reason again. And then we see some girls walk past there.
Oh, three lovely Fräuleins.
Absolutely. And Bomber's like, I wish I was their age. And Oz is like, I am. And Bomber and Oz stand up and follow the girls. And then even Barry joins in. Very attractive. So they cut back to the bar. It's obviously must be Saturday now, and Dennis is talking to Nev about the game. Now,
Liège, yeah.
Sunderland versus Liège. Now, as a Geordie and as an avid Newcastle United fan, I have to voice my disappointment. Now, obviously, we watched the documentary, and Ian Lafreniere and Dick Clement and Ian Lafreniere basically said, why did they go and watch Sunderland? And you know, they allude to it that it's better than going to watch nothing, which is fair enough. However, me personally, if I was somewhere, like if I was there and Sunderland were playing Liège, I would buy a ticket and stand in the Liège end and support Liège against Sunderland.
Right, okay.
So it's a little bit, I mean, I get it, you know, Northeastern team and whatever, and, you know, some people might not be as fanatical as myself, but yeah, I mean, I can't believe, I don't know, I personally don't know any Newcastle United fan that would go and watch a Sunderland game and support Sunderland regardless of where they were. But anyway, you know, Dennis is trying to persuade Neville to go to the game, and Neville's, you know,
maybe they just wanted something like normality from home, you know, to go and watch a football match, which they probably did when they were, you know, at home. So
yeah. Well, I mean, like I say,
and get pissed as well.
I would have gone to the match, but I'd have been stood in the Liège end, and I would have worn my Newcastle United shirt in the Liège end, shouting against Sunderland. That's what I would have done.
Yeah.
Anyway, like I say, they're going to. Dennis is trying to persuade Neville to go to the game. Neville's being very negative. He's like, "We've got no car." And he's like, "We'll get the train." He's like, "But you need a passport." Like, as if they didn't have a passport. He's like, "Well, we've got a passport. They let us into Germany. That's why." And he's like, we're going to lose too much money. And Dennis is like, "Sometimes it's worth it." And,
yeah, he's nervy about the money.
and he's like, "It's not just a junket. We're going to go and see Sunderland." And then Bomber says the correct thing, and Bomber says, "Sounds like a penance rather than a junket." And Nev sticks up for the Mackhams, and he says it's, you know, better than Bristol Rovers. And Bomber's like, "Two right cities, my team." But I believe we've got to remember this moment, because apparently later on, Bomber is seen wearing a Bristol Rovers shirt. So
right.
We'll have to, I think it's in Spain, I think he's seen wearing a Bristol Rovers shirt. Anyway, like I say, Neville's like, "I'd like to go in principle, but it's a bit too extravagant." Anyway, Oz walks in, and he's like got something hidden in his coat. He's like, "Turn around and shut your eyes." And
the big reveal.
Aye. So Oz brings in, shows he's bought this stereo, which is like a TV combination stereo. Now, bit of trivia, bit of a fact for you, young George. So
the model number. Yeah.
Yes. So this is a Sony FX414,
414,
which was on sale between 1979 and 1983.
Which you could probably buy one on eBay, actually.
Ooh, I tell you what, let's have a look. We'll have a look.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, this kind of technology, you know, must have been all the rage back then.
It was hardly high definition, was it?
No, but it's Dennis says something, and he says it would have cost you about a week's wages. Now we work it out later on that they're making about, I think it works out that they're making, hold on, what's the Tuesday? Yeah, so they're making about 60 quid a day. Yeah. Give or take. So
which was good back then.
Making about £300 a week tax free. So that's,
I was hardly making that a month back then.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I mean, that's, you know, so you're probably looking that's probably the equivalent of at least £1,000 a week these days, tax free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, Dennis is basically saying that he's going to have spent that much money, which seems like a hell of a lot of money for a stereo. You know what I mean? But maybe that was, you know, I mean, I remember when I was a kid, you know, 9, my mother bought me a stereo for Christmas, me and my sister, and they were like 50 quid for this, like a get over.
Yeah.
So that was back in the day, which would have been the equivalent of maybe, I don't know, how much was that worth these days? I don't know, like 100 quid, like 200 quid, whatever. I don't know, but it was obviously clearly a lot of money. And he says, you know, he bought it from some jock called Fergie, who was taking money home for his missus, and Nev has another little pop and says, well, that's what you should be doing, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And again, Oz justifies his actions, about, and he says, I'm entitled to some creature comforts. And Nev again has another pop. He says, well, isn't your wife entitled to the same? And he says, well, she can reap the benefits when I get home. She can listen to a Barry Manilow tape.
That's it, yeah.
Anyway, so Oz struggles to get it to work, and he's clearly been fucking palmed off with a bit of a lemon. And Bomber takes the piss and says, what's that, Scott of the Antarctic? And so Dennis says, you must be a lunatic. It must have cost you the week's wages. Like I say, about 300 quid. And Oz is like, I'm a lot more responsible than that, I wouldn't spend all my money. I would keep a bit back.
For the Liège game.
Exactly. There's a bit of a pregnant pause. And you think, oh, he's going to send some money home to the wife. Then he goes, for the Sunderland Liège game. So then we cut back to England. It's late at night, and there's who we find out to be Marjorie is walking down the street, and all dolled up.
Leopard skin.
Leopard skin, yeah, like Bet Lynch.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And anyway, so it cuts into Vera's house. Vera's shouting at her kids. And again, Vera's got a pretend posh voice on. Reminds me of my sister. My sister's like that. My sister grew up where I grew up. You know what I mean? Talks like that. Which, married a rich bloke, got a big house, and now she talks like this and lives in Warwickshire. I'm
the
like,
phone voice.
You fucking trying to kid, man? You talk like me, man. So anyway, Vera's sticking her posh voice on, and she's talking to the kids, and her boyfriend's in the kitchen and he's fixing the sink. Now, our boyfriend is called Alan, and he is a half a famous Geordie actor. He's called Beric Calla. Been in lots of stuff. Now, bit of a crossover. Do you know what else he was in and who else he was in there with?
No, I don't. I didn't. Yeah.
He did a couple of things. Like one of the major things he was in Spender.
Right. Okay.
Now, there's a team. We're going to talk about Spender. So Spender was obviously Jimmy Neal's idea and came after Auf Wiedersehen Pet, and it was also written by Ian LaFreniere.
Very good it was as well.
Spender was a cracking program. And
always had a good suit on.
Yeah. And so Beric Keller played a policeman, he's like Spender's contact in Spender. But he was also in Crocodile Shoes, also with Jimmy Neal. But he was also in Boone with Michael.
Oh, really?
He was, not as a big part. He's one of those actors that he's been in Casualty, The Bill, Boone.
Yeah.
He's got 57 credits.
Everyone knows what he looks like, but don't know his name.
Exactly. He's got 57 credits on his IMDb, and a lot of them are just like one episode here, one episode there. So yes, he was also in Boone. So she asks him to fix the bike. Vera's says to him, now he's fixed the sink, he can fix the bairn's bike. She slags off Dennis a bit, saying that, he had his own building company, but he never did any work around the house. And, but she, credit where credit's due, she says,
he always sends money. Yeah.
Exactly. And Alan's a bit like, does Dennis, he wants to know if Dennis knows about him. And he says, do the kids write him letters and talk about me? And then she takes the piss and she says, well, one of the kids did mention you said you were going to fix his bike. And he said, if you want an odd job, man, you picked the wrong bloke. And then she says, oh, it must be something else I'm after, alluding.
They're getting a bit friendly at that point.
Alluding to the fact that they're going to have a bit of action. And then the doorbell rings and Marjorie comes in. Marjorie's like, are you Vera Patterson? I'm Oz's wife. And she says, well, you better come in then. So Alan's putting his shoes on, and obviously Marjorie's like...
She's clocking everything.
Oh, yeah, she's a right nosy bitch.
I'm not interrupting anything, Pet.
Yeah, I'm not interrupting anything. Clearly, like, hinting that, they've been shagging, and Vera's like, no, he's fixing the bike, which sounds like a bit of a pony excuse, really, to be honest with you, doesn't it? So she says, sit down and take your coat off, and she's got a leopard skin coat.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And she's got a leopard skin blouse on underneath. And yeah, very, very Bet Lynch, and she's being very, very nosy about what's happening. And anyway, make her a cuppa, and you know, what can I do for you? And you know, she's basically, Marjorie's after some information about what's going on.
Yeah.
She says, I've not heard from Oz. And she says, I only found out he was in Germany because I went down the club and Oz had sent a postcard.
The snooker club, yeah.
Aye. Well, I think it's the Working Men's Club.
Oh, right, yeah.
So he's, but Oz has gone out of his way and sent a postcard back to the Working Men's Club.
Yeah, of course.
Not sent out to his wife. You know, that's it. And anyway, so Vera says, you know, they're in Dusseldorf. And she says, did you not talk about it before you left? She goes, no, he did a flit. And like Vera's like,
the bugger did a flit.
But Vera's like, again, you know, so in the same way that Neville's dumbfounded with Oz, Vera is dumbfounded with Marjorie.
Yeah.
And, you know, me personally, you know, you find sort of, it's very quick that you can draw the parallels between Oz and Marjorie. You know, it's like Oz married the female version of himself. Healthy as fuck. She dresses, you know, Oz dresses scruffily, but she dresses like a tart. You know, they're both anything that moves. You know, they both put their foot in it. And that happens very, very soon. So Vera puts her foot in it, though. And, you know, she says, ooh, they're earning very good money.
Mm.
And Marjorie's like, well, I've not had a penny. So Vera sort of tries to change the subject.
She holds back a little bit.
Yeah, she tries to change the subject and appease Marjorie by offering to give her the address of where they work. And Marjorie pleads poverty, and then she talks about the Ford Zephyr. She says, you know, Oz put a down payment on a car.
Someone come round.
Now he's coming around looking for his money, which is obviously the Ford Zephyr. And then she, you know, she fishes for information again. She's like, so how good is the money that they're earning?
Yeah.
And Vera, you know, she says, oh, Dennis gives me, well, you know, enough what he needs.
Yeah.
You know, Vera's sensible enough to, you know, to pull back and not give her all the info. And she says, you know, you're lucky to have a man like him. And then she looks across and sees Alan's coat.
Yeah.
And Vera can obviously tell what she's thinking. So she says, you know, we are getting divorced. And she goes, well, that's your business, not mine. Clearly being nosy. And then she comes up with a classic line. This is, you know, this is the kind of classic line that Oz comes up with, you know, parallel in Germany. And she says, well, you know, I've thought about leaving Oz myself, but he needs to be there in the first place.
The bugger's got to be there in the first place.
So, you know, very quickly, like I say, I think it's, you know, definitely done on purpose, that it's, you know, given the impression that, you know, Marjorie is, you know, very much a female version of Oz.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So they cuts back to the hut. The kettle's not on, which is, it's obviously, you know, the rule must be who's ever's first back to the hut puts the kettle on. Oz is trying to fix his stereo. It's broken. Basically saying that Oz is, you know, he's basically saying that Oz is an idiot and he's been mugged off. And Oz says, you know, bollocks. And he goes, that's your answer to everything, isn't he? He goes, bollocks again. And he's, you know, he's saying, oh, the game will be on the, and Neville, you know, Neville says, and he says, oh, the game will be on the telly. And Dennis says, well, we're all going. And obviously, you know, Neville just isn't interested. And anyway, Barry comes in with a mail call.
Oh, yeah, he's got a handful of letters.
Got a handful of letters, and one of them is for
Oz.
And again, you know, Oz is...
Impossible.
Again, Oz is blown away by the fact that someone sent him a letter. And Barry says, oh, it's in a woman's hand. And Oz says, no, it's not. It's from the wife. So they're all reading the letters. Moxie complains there's no milk. Barry pipes up again about about shopping rotas. Barry, the organizer, as always, trying to be the Mr. Democratic and diplomatic. Anyway, Oz starts screaming at Dennis, this is your fault. She got the address from your wife. She's got no right to do that. Anyway, Dennis is like, you know, she must have been pretty desperate to look for a stranger. And, you know, Nev says again, it's, you know, because she's desperate and she's got no money. And Nev, you know, knows, you know, and then, sorry, Oz, you know, now thinks he's been dropped in it because his wife is going to know how much money Neville and Vera Neville send him back to his wife, and Dennis is sending back to his wife. And Barry brings up the faithful West Bromwich and District Building Society. He doesn't know how much I'm sending back to the West Bromwich and District. And again, you know, Dennis hammers the point home. You know, you've brought this on yourself again. You know, you treat your wife like shit. And then Oz has a little pop about Alan. He says, oh, well, there was a bloke there with no shoes on. But Dennis gets a little bit sheepish for a second. You know, Dennis is, you know, Dennis, it basically, you know, he's being caught out kind of thing. But then he, you know, he fires straight back. He's like, well, I'm getting a divorce and that's a boyfriend. And then Oz says something really horrible. And he says, well, maybe if you took a firmer hand
that's it,
your wife, then you wouldn't be getting divorced. And Dennis fires back and again threatens Oz, and he says, if I was going to take a firmer hand with anyone, it'll be with you. And anyway, Dennis lays down the truth. He's, you know, you've got a wife and you've got a kid, and you know, you should be sending money back, and you spent all your money. And Bomber, it's like, we didn't know you had a kid, Oz. He says, is it a boy or a girl? And he says, it's a little laddie. And he says, how old? And he goes, and this is a typical Oz answer. He goes,
he's not too sure.
he goes 5 or 6. And so he goes, you don't even know. He goes, no, he's 6. He's 6. He's like, what's he called? And he says, Rodney. And Barry goes, Rodney. And Oz, obviously defensive instantly, you know, goes, what's wrong with that? And Barry realizes that he's about to be, he calls defense. He's like, nothing. He goes, it's a nice name. And he goes, well, it's Rod, actually. She named him after Rod Stewart.
Well, that's it, yeah.
And then this is again classic Oz. He says, Bomber says, what's he like? And then Oz, being the idiot, he's, you know, thinks he's talking about Rod Stewart. He goes, well, I can't stand him, but Merle Haggard Osborne.
yeah.
And he goes, no, I meant the kid. And he goes, well, he's all right. He goes, he gets into a bit of bother, but he can handle it. And everyone looks at Oz like he's an absolute alien. And he's like, you know, and anyway, Oz tries to placate everyone. He sort of realizes finally that he's in the wrong a little bit when everyone looks at him. He says, all right, I'll be sending some money home. Just not this week, you know. You know, I've got to...
Bought the TV.
Yeah. Italian, I'm going to football. He goes, I just need to buy some time. He goes, so can you write not known at this address? So anyway, they cut back to Newcastle. Brenda and Vera are in a bar in Newcastle.
Cocktail bar, looks like.
It is. So a couple of things. So number one, the waiter is called Ralph Watson. That's the actor's name.
He looked familiar. I mean,
he is. Well, again, he's one of them job actors. So again, he's got 67 credits on his IMDb. And, you know, Casualty, The Bill, London's Burning, Spender, was in the film McVicker. Was in an episode of To the Manor Born, The Liver Birds.
To the Manor Born? Oh, God.
Yeah. When the Boat Comes In.
Oh, one of my favourites from the 70s, James Bolam.
Yeah, he was in an episode of Porridge. He played the landlord of the pub. You know, when Fletcher...
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I watched that the other week, actually.
yeah, he's in Dixon of Dock Green.
Oh.
But finally, he is also in Boone as well.
Oh, right. Okay.
Also in an episode of Boone. So, yes, in an episode of Boone. That's Ralph Watson. Because I thought he looked like... what do you call him? Sammy, what do you call him? The lad who plays Stick, who in Spender, and was also played the Geordie in, he's dead now. They do the Sunday for Sammy. I can't remember his surname now. It'll come to me in a bit. But yeah, I thought it was him to begin with. And who's obviously Jimmy Neal's friend.
I've got to rewatch Spender, actually. I haven't seen it.
Well, I think it might be on YouTube. I downloaded it from a perfectly legal download site, a few years ago and watched it, but then I think I deleted it off my hard drive.
It might be on BritBox. I haven't looked. But,
it might be, yeah. And I actually had a look on Amazon the other day. They don't sell it on Amazon. But I did buy the Jimmy Neal autobiography, so I'm going to read that soon. So anyway, they're in town. Now, they're drinking a Blue Lagoon, right, which was a very popular cocktail at the time. Blue Lagoon.
Very blue, yeah.
It was it's vodka, blue curacao, and lemonade.
Oh, right.
When I first started work as my first job, when I was 17, I started working in a bar called Offshore 44, which is on the quayside in Newcastle.
Was that next to Offshore 43?
It wasn't, no. But very, very, very busy and popular bar on the quayside in Newcastle. And they used to have a cocktail list, and it was happy hour at 8 o'clock, and it was like £1.45 for a cocktail. Blue Lagoons were very, very popular. But I mean, this is obviously 10 years previous to that, and, so a Blue Lagoon was seen to be the height of sophistication in early 80s Newcastle. And so Vera and Brenda are having a drink. They're talking about Marjorie, and Vera says she's a bit hard. And obviously, we're very lucky. We've got Neville and Dennis who are sending money back. And she says, Alan, she goes, well, Alan's going to offer her a job 3 days a week.
In a supermarket.
Yeah. And obviously Vera, she's very complimentary, and, he's very senior at the supermarket. He can pull strings. And but I very much doubt that she's interested in getting a job. But then she goes, so she turns up, and I think the phrase to describe her as she comes in is all fur coat and no knickers. Perfect phrase to describe her. And Vera says, she's a bit obvious. Anyway, she sits down and she picks up Brenda's drink and drinks it and says, I'll have them. But then she says something which is proper Geordie. So she's talking about her boots. She's wearing these boots, and she says, I got them in the sale in Bins, right? Now, Bins was a department store in Newcastle, and very, 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 very famous. Very famous. Not there anymore. Doesn't exist anymore. But Bins was a big department store in Newcastle, and I think, was it part of the House of Fraser Group? It might have been part of the House of Fraser Group. I can't remember. But yeah, Bins. I remember the back exit. And in fact, in series 2, when Dennis is picking up Vicky from the hairdressers, she's parked at the big market where they come out the back of Bin. But yeah, so she said, I got them in the sale in Bins. And
doesn't she say they're made of ocelot?
Yeah, she goes, they're meant to be imitation ocelot.
Whatever that is.
An ocelot's like a cat, like a big cat.
Right.
Yeah. So and they say, have you heard from Oz? And she's like, obviously no. And she says 3 more of them. And the waiter, or Ralph Watson, who plays the waiter, says, those guys at the bar have said you can have anything you want. Anything you want. And he, and Vera and Brenda say no. And Marjorie's like, well, hold on,
We're not all flush, are we?
Yeah, exactly. Marjorie's clearly interested in free drinks, and maybe, and she says, one of them's quite tasty. So Marjorie's not only interested in free drinks, but also potentially something else. Vera's like, what a nerve. And Marjorie's like, well, wait a minute. They're not all bad. So she goes, it must be the boots. Men like boots.
Yeah, as we do. Yeah.
And then, she Marjorie then justifies her actions by saying that that's what the lads are doing, out in Germany. And obviously Brenda's offended, and she defends her. Now, Neville's not doing that. And, again, Marjorie, in the same way that Oz won't let something go, and he goes on and on and on about whatever joke he's trying to do, Marjorie's the same, and she says, out of sight, out of mind. And
no questions asked. Yeah,
it gets to the point where Vera, just straight up, just says, "Shut up, Marjorie," and she says that You know,
have I offended you, Pet? I think she says.
well, no, she says Brenda and Neville are a happily married.
Oh, yeah.
And like I say, Oz, the same way that Oz is like,
what have I done?
like, what have I done? Like, she's the same. And she just, you know, the very concept that, you know, obviously, so Vera's getting divorced. So
Yeah.
Marjorie instantly puts them in the same boat, you know.
Yeah.
But the very concept that Brenda and Neville are a happily married couple is so alien to Marjorie that she's like, and she says, well, maybe he's the exception. But like, so Brenda's got the hump. Anyway, they say they're going to go for a curry. Vera's now trying to get rid of, she says, oh, have you got other plans? Basically saying, are you going to go and shag that bloke? And like she say, you know, I haven't upset you, have I? So they cut to the bar. Neville's on the phone to Brenda.
Yeah, reassuring her.
Brenda's giving Neville an ear bashing. Obviously, are you out shagging and da-da-da-da-da? You know, Wayne and Barry are playing cards. Wayne's like, I don't understand married men. Anyway, Barry tries to psychoanalyze Wayne and say that he's the product of a broken home and da-da-da-da-da. And
he gets that wrong.
Well, exactly. Like he says, he goes, how come my parents have just celebrated their silver wedding? And then he puts his cards down and wins the game of rummy they're obviously playing. So Barry realizes that he's been a bit of a twat. Oz comes storming in. He's got the stereo working, the music blasts out, and it makes Brenda think that they're in a disco.
That's it, yeah.
So anyway, they cut to the train station. It's just Dennis and Oz. No Neville, obviously. Neville's not going. And Dennis and Oz are getting the train to Belgium. Anyway, so they cut back to the hut, and Neville's got the stereo, and he's trying to get the radio working. And Wayne's like, what language is that? And he's like, well, I don't know why you're bothering. And Neville says, it's one of my home teams. Again, I'm like, that would never, ever happen. But anyway, he says, Neville's like, I've got better things to do with me money than go to the match. And Wayne has a bit of a pop and says, yeah, Brenda's got something better to do with your money. Anyway, they think they've found the game, and then Neville, Neville starts talking, and he says, I'd like to go, I like football, he says, but the fans are ruining the game these days. And he's talking about, this is the early 80s, the height of fucking football hooliganism.
Oh yeah, especially abroad.
Yeah, I mean the height of football hooliganism in the UK. This was before CCTV, before banning orders, before any of that. And yeah, the hooligans were running amok. There was some major issues with football hooliganism at that time. And Bomber just says, it's tragic what's happened to the national pastime. And so Bomber's sat there donning his sock, being all romantic. It's tragic. Anyway, you hear the speech on the radio, you hear some talking on the radio, and it clearly, I could tell, I don't know if anybody else could, but it was clearly Dutch on the radio.
Yeah.
Anyway, Barry tries to be a psychoanalyst again, and he's talking about how, football hooliganism is a social problem. Anyway, there's a noise from the radio, and they go, hey, it's a goal. Neville's like, it's a goal, and then you can hear the word Ajax.
Ajax, yeah.
And Neville realizes that he's listening to a Dutch radio station for a Dutch game. Anyway, they cut to where the match is, and basically Dennis is in a bar full of Mackems, and Dennis is chatting away, and he's talking about, I live over here, the drawbacks, and they're talking about how there's no work at home, and and he says it's good, but he says that it's all right being over here, but there are some drawbacks. And then it cuts to Oz, and Oz is going mental, and then they
at the back table,
being a lunatic fringe, and they say, we got over here on a charter plane, and these lads, I used to work in the shipyard, now I'm driving a van, it's bad in the UK. And it's getting louder and louder and louder, and Oz is like got his foot up on the table, kicking the table to make a noise, and so anyway, Oz stands up and he says, I'm going out with these lads to find a bit of action. Anyway, so Dennis is like, look, I'm staying here. He says, but be at the station for 11 o'clock. He says, because the train won't wait for you, and neither will I. And then the lads say to Dennis, "Who's he?" And he says, "Aye, that's one of the drawbacks."
Yeah.
So the next thing you see is Dennis walking through the site. And so
Singing a little bit.
So obviously if the train was 11 o'clock, it's probably taking a 2 or a 3 hour train journey. So it's got to be 2 a.m. You know what I mean? It's got to be 2 a.m. He's getting back to Dusseldorf, back to the site at 2 a.m. And Dennis, he creeps into the hut, but Neville's awake, and he asks him, what was the game like? It was 1-1. He's like, where's Oz? Who knows? So
who knows?
Cuts to Oz, and Oz is asleep on the plane. So he's got a Sunderland scarf wrapped around his neck, and he wakes up, and the bloke's going, "Come on, we're having a whip round for the driver." And he's like, "The driver," and he goes, "Where, the pilot?" And Oz, that wakes him up. Oz is like, "What?" He's like, "I'm on a plane." And he goes, "Aye, we're just about to land. Fasten your safety belt, extinguish your safety belt." And he's like, "Where are we?" And he's like, "We're going, we're nearly home." And he's like, "I'm not home. I live in Dusseldorf." Anyway, so they cut to the car. Now, interesting fact.
Yeah.
The car is driving up a road. Do you know what road it is?
I don't.
It's Loftus Road.
Ah.
So this is they are using, they're on location, but they're pretending that London, West London, is in fact Germany.
Oh, okay.
Is in fact Newcastle.
Oh, Loftus Road by the football ground.
Yeah. So that's where they are. So they're driving around. It's near Queen's Park Rangers. Bush, da. And he's like, "How did I get on the plane?" He's like, "Well, 2 of the lads carried you on. There's always more seats going." He says, "We went to Portugal last year, and 3 of the lads haven't been seen since." He's obviously always saying that when they organise these, people always get arrested. And so they drop us off outside the block of flats where he lives with Marjorie, obviously, or supposed to live with Marjorie. And Marjorie is in the flat, and there's basically a bloke walking out of her bedroom. So Marjorie's obviously taken that bloke home and had a wicked way with him, and then she's letting him out, and she says, "Will I see you again?" He goes, "Oh, I'll keep in touch." Like, really, that bloke's never ever going to see that. So the car pulls up at the flats, and the block of flats are in Hammersmith. So I looked them up on Google Earth, and they're not too far from me. A little sort of in between me and you, George, in Hammersmith. So yes, we can maybe when the lockdown's finished, we might pay a little bit of a homage. Sounds good. Go and pay a wee visit to the flats. But then it's quite funny. So the music plays, and the music sort of is very much like a 70s, 80s sitcom, and there's a comedy tone to the music, because obviously this bloke's just leaving the flat, Marjorie's flat, and Oz is coming, and Oz and the bloke cross paths.
I think they share a glance, don't they?
They bump into each other, and Oz looks at the bloke, and the bloke walks off. And so obviously Marjorie starts cleaning up, and she finds the guy's tie.
That's it, yeah.
And then there's a knock at the door. So obviously Marjorie thinks that the bloke's come back to get his tie. She opens the door, and who does she find? But it's Oz knocking at the door. So Marjorie hides the tie, and and she's like, "What are you doing here, Oz?" And Oz is like, Oz is, instead of telling her the truth, that he fucked up, and he's
got a big story, of course.
And he says, "Oh, I've come home because I read your letter, and then I wanted to sort out the marriage." And Marjorie falls for it. Marjorie believes, and she thinks she's been caught. She's like, "That's the only reason you're back." And he's like, "Yes, well, what other reason would there be?" She literally, 30 seconds before, she's had another man in the flat. She's hiding the 2 glasses. She's trying to hide the fact that this guy's been there hiding the tie.
tie in the drawer, I think.
And you know, they're both as bad as each other. You know, the bottom line is, you know, Oz is lying to her, she's lying to him. You know, it's just an absolute shit show from start to finish. So they cut back onto the site, and obviously Oz isn't there. The lads are going to stick up for him and say that he's sick. And Barry, you know, it turns to Dennis and says, what we're going to do. And he puts it on Dennis. He's like, you have got the seniority. And Dennis gets the hump again. You know, look, all of our problems revolve around Oz. And why have I got to sort it out? Anyway, they're talking about, you know, what can we say? What can we say? And Bomber suggests to say that Oz is sick and that he's got the clap. And they say, well, that's not going to stop you laying bricks. And he says, aye, but it's the most likely thing to happen to him. And then Barry suggests that he catches toxic shock.
Toxic shock, yeah.
Now, I'm not an expert, but isn't toxic shock something women get?
Yeah, once a month, yeah.
Well, no. Well, I believe is toxic shock not something that a woman will get if she doesn't change her sanitary products once a month?
Oh, okay. Right.
I believe that is
a bit more clinical than I thought.
I believe that's where it comes from, but you know, it could be anything. Anyway, so. And Barry says, you're the leader. He says straight up to Dennis, he says, because you're the leader. And basically, Barry has got what he wanted. Yeah, Barry has finally got someone, he's finally said to someone, you're the leader, and they haven't denied it. So basically, Dennis is now appointed leader, and Barry's got what he wanted. So they cut back to the flat, and Marjorie is making a cup of tea. Oz obviously lies about money. And, you know,
he's not making the money that they are anyway.
Well, that's it. So he tries to say that because of the
he's done his homework.
Yeah. So I mean, Oz has got this plan where he's going to lay the groundwork in, and you know, he's going to say that he's not making the same money the other lads are, so that's why he can't send any money back. And then, you know, Marjorie says, "What about the money you spent on the airfare?"
That's it. You could have given that to me and Rob.
You know, some things are more important than money.
That's it. Yeah.
And he tries to basically insinuate that the only reason he's come back is to sort the marriage out. And Marjorie kind of buys it. And she's quite she's taken with this potential romantic gesture of Oz. And she says, you know, we could have spent that money on me and the bairn. And Oz is like, well, you know, I was coming here to sort the marriage. I wasn't stopping to count the pennies. And but then he says, oh, speaking of money, though, I am going to need a bit of money to get back. And he says, oh, there's always a bit of money in the pot. And he obviously points to a teapot on the mantel.
Yeah, he's got his eye on that mantelpiece, I think.
Yeah. And she says, aye, that's for the bairn's birthday and all of that. And he finally asks about his kid. And he says, well, you know, does the kid miss me? And she says, well, of course you did. You know, he's your dad, but you buggered off. And then he says, that is a great line. She goes, well, you know, you buggered off without telling anyone. And he goes, aye. He says, because I thought that if you knew what I was doing, you would try to stop me. Like, yes, of course I would have done. Like, he's using that as an excuse in his argument. Yeah. Anyway, she's like, you could have let me know. Anyway, Oz, you know, he's been back in the house for 2 minutes. And he tries to get in. He tries it on with her.
He's trying to get her out of the room.
And he's trying to get a bit of action. And he says, "Look," he says. She goes, "I haven't got time for that now." I mean, basically, she doesn't say no, which is like just not now. Anyway, he says, you know, he goes, "Why don't you make me some bacon and eggs?
Knock us up some bacon and eggs, yeah.
And I'll go and get the bairn up." So he sends her off to the kitchen, and as she goes off to the kitchen, his hand is straight in the teapot. And she wanted to hear him. And she said, "I don't keep it there anymore." And so he's been done up like a kipper. He's got his hand. And then the worst timing possible for us, the mail arrives.
Mr. Postman.
So the postman turns up, and obviously she sees what's happened. She sees the letter, not known at this address, and the penny drops, and she goes absolutely mental. "You're not even in Germany, da 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 da." And you never read me letter. You're not in Dusseldorf. and she throws the cup at him, and Oz has got the teapot on his hand, and he defends himself. He defends himself with the teapot, and everything breaks and da 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 da. So anyway, they're back in the bar in Dusseldorf, and Nev's obviously smoothed it over with Brenda, Barry and Wayne once again playing cards and discussing Neville and Brenda. And Wayne's being a bit cynical, and he describes himself as the trained observer
of a married man.
And then obviously Nev gets off the phone and comes back and says, "Oh, Oz is back home." So once again, they cut to the site, and they stood outside the admin hut, waiting for Herr Pfister, waiting for the wages.
Mr. McGowan is there again.
Exactly, McGowan. So Herr Pfister comes out the hut. McGowan fucking shoves everyone out the way. And
I think he actually, I think I noticed he shoves Bomber as well, I think.
Does he?
Yeah, I think he does. Yeah, he sort of, yeah.
But
he does shove
the
Bomber.
thing about it is, Bomber's one of them people that he's all about keeping the peace, I think, really, rather than, he wouldn't start a fight over something so trivial.
Yeah.
So anyway, McGowan pushes everyone out the way, and he's got Herr Pfister, and he's intimidating up against the side of the hut. And he says, "I'm sorry about last week. I was feeling a bit beady," whatever that means. And Herr Pfister gives him the money. He says, "You wouldn't have docked me wages as some kind of childish, retribution." He's like, "No," and like you can see, Herr Pfister just wants to give him the money and get rid of him. And then he calls through everyone, Wayne and Dennis and Neville and da 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 da, and then a couple of randoms. Reed and Johnson, whoever they are, Barry and Oz, and Barry tells Dennis to deal with Oz's money. So Dennis Barry says, "Why don't you deal with that?" And then Dennis goes over, and then Barry pipes up. He goes, "You've got toxic shock," and Dennis is like, "I'll deal with it." So he says that he's sick, and Herr Pfister talks about replacing him, and Dennis says, "No, look, we'll don't worry, I'll let you know on Monday."
Yeah.
So Dennis, nails exactly the reason he's gone. He says he's gone home. He would have scored for a free flight home, and he'd be home having a few jars with the lads. And Neville goes, "Has he gone to sort his marriage out?" And Dennis is like, "What?" Yeah. Anyway, Dennis says, "I think we've seen the last of him." Anyway, so
we haven't.
No, we haven't. So the next thing is we cut to the morning, and Oz bursts into the hut. It's obviously Monday morning, so they pick the wages up Friday. Oz has been home for a few days now. He went home on the wedding. So if he's got 3 days' wages, the match must have been on the Wednesday night. He would have got home Thursday morning. So he's had Thursday, Friday, He's obviously flown home, but he's flown back Sunday night or come back Sunday, and he is back in the hut. So it's early doors Sunday morning, and he wakes up Dennis, and Oz tries to make out that he did it on purpose. He's like, "Oh, I went home, had a few pints with the lads and all that." And then, but Oz is like, determined. He says, "Right," he goes, "but from now on, we can keep the wives' mafia out of our..."
That's it, yeah.
And he goes, "The good thing is Marjorie thinks I'm not in Dusseldorf.
I'm the invisible man."
And Bomber's like, he goes, "I can't think of anyone less invisible than you was." And so first thing, he's like, "Where's me stereo?" He goes, "I've got that." And he goes, "Where?" He goes, "You could have asked." He goes, "No." He goes, "It's mine." He goes, "I bought it." And Barry suggests to Dennis that he explains the situation. So he says, "Look, he says, we didn't think..."
So we've seen it after you, yeah.
"We think we're coming back." He says, "So we've gone through your locker, and the 3 things that were of any value were your stereo, your donkey jacket, and your digital alarm.
Digital clock."
So we've had an auction, and so Barry got the clock. Moxie got his donkey jacket. I don't know how Moxie is going to fit. I mean, can you imagine what Moxie looks like wearing Oz's jacket?
Yeah.
And obviously Wayne got the stereo. And Oz is very, very disgruntled by this. and he says, we'll raise £230.
Yeah.
He says, plus your 3 days' wages makes nearly £400. So they're obviously, that's 170 quid.
Oz sounds quite happy about this, I think.
That's like 170 quid for 3 days' wages. So, it's, like I say, it's about 50, 60 quid a day that I'm making. He says, well, where is it? He says, because I had to borrow some money to get back. And Dennis is like, he goes, well, he's like, we didn't think you were coming back, so we sent it home. and Oz is like, oh, what's going to happen to it? And Neville takes great pleasure in saying, I think your wife will find a use for it.
Yeah.
And that's the final line. So, so again, a lot of this episode revolving around Oz and, his attitudes. Like, last episode was his attitudes towards the Germans, and now it's a lot of it about his attitudes towards his wife. So Marjorie is going to be having a right result, getting a 400 quid, which is, if it's 2 weeks, that's, a week.
I'd love to have seen a scene where I've seen her face receiving the money.
Well, that would have been
good, yeah.
Being able to see her face opening the envelope. That would have been nice, but obviously what's gone unsaid. So, again, fantastic episode, some cracking one-liners. We've met Marjorie, we've seen how she is the female version of Oz. We've seen how the women are getting on back home, and we've met McGowan.
Yeah.
That sows the seed.
Yeah.
The episode
he features quite well in a few more episodes. Yeah.
Good, yeah. So anyway, so the credits were given. Vera, Marjorie, and Brenda were all given a credit. Marjorie, so I think I forgot to mention it. She is played by Sue Elliott, and she's also got 57 credits on her IMDb. And she was recently in an episode of Hollyoaks. But she's also been in EastEnders, Holby City, Harry Potter, Coronation Street, Heidi High. She was in Adrian Mole.
She keeps busy.
Doreen Slater and Adrian Mole. She was also in Where the Boat Comes In.
Oh, really?
She also had a part in a very famous Geordie movie called Purely Belter, which was about 2 kids saving up for a season ticket for Newcastle United. And also Tim Healy was also in Purely Belter as well. So anyway, the lads, the Sunderland fans, Alan, Steve, Andy, Ernie, Brian, they were all given credits. Alan was the boyfriend, Steve, Andy, Ernie, and Brian. Herr Fister, the barman, and the waiter that we've already said. And obviously, our favourite group, Expose.
Oh, yes.
So, big.
What the hell happened to them?
Big fans of Expose, big fans. So that is it. That was Series 1, Episode 3, The Girls They Left Behind. So if you have any comments whatsoever, please don't hesitate to email us on aufwiedersehenagain@gmail.com. Please follow us on Instagram, Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast, Twitter @Auf Again, Facebook, Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. Please like and share the Facebook page. And please do subscribe and click the bell on the YouTube channel of Wiedersehen Again. And remember, if you don't have access to YouTube or you want to listen in the car, you can access the podcast on all good podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, Google Podcast Breaker, SoundCloud, and many more. And remember, new episodes are released every Friday at 10 a.m.
And remember the free tattoo.
That's it, exactly. Remember, we are sponsored by Top Gun Tattooing, number 12, the Harris Arcade in Reading. Website is topguntattoo.co.uk. Phone number 01189 968 667. And to get 20% discount off your tattoo, you've just got to contact Zach and say the code word Hadaway and Shiteman. And like I say, for a free tattoo, send us an email and I will pay for your tattoo at Top Gun Tattoo.
And film it.
For Neville and Lottie, and we will film it and put it up on the Facebook page, on all of our social medias. And remember, our theme music was written and performed by the guitar man himself, Lee Dusky. So that's it for this week, and myself and George will be back next week.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Yeah, we will be back next week with episode 4, but please, in the interim period, like I say, please do try and share and recommend the podcast to your friends. We're going to try and drum up a few more listeners. And we're also going to be running in the near future, we're going to be running some giveaway competitions on the Instagram page for a few books. I've got some books at home.
Oh, good.
I've got Pat Roach's autobiography, biography called If.
That should be a good one. Actually, I haven't read that.
I've got both Auf Wiedersehen Pet books, Series 1 and Series 2. And I've just ordered Jimmy Neal's autobiography, and I think I've ordered something else. But like I say, we're going to be running some giveaway competitions on the Instagram page, and also we'll do it on Facebook and Instagram. But like I say, so please do like the Instagram page and follow us on Instagram at Auf Wiedersehen Again Podcast. And like I say, we will be back next Friday at 10 a.m. with episode 4. And until then, George.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen Pet.
Oh, yeah, man. All out of options, nothing to choose. I fizzed out on Netflix, I'm sick of the news. I'd sign up to Sky, but I don't wanna pay. I've been on furlough since May. Now I'll go and listen to a Cockney attitude.